Hello. Hello, everyone. And I'm Gemma Star, and welcome to another episode of Heart Warriors. This is a series I've been inspired and guided to do thanks to my energetic connection to Katajuda. Katajuda is the sacred masculine site in Central Australia, very close to Uluru, which is the sacred feminine site. And it's these two energies of the divine feminine and the divine masculine that are coming through at the moment in union for our beautiful new earth. This is a platform for men to speak to other men about their journey into the heart, their challenges, their highs, their lows. What insights, tools, practices have they picked up along the way that they can now share with others walking this path? And of course, us women who want to get a better insight into our men and the masculine journey. Today's guest is a fellow Aussie, and his name is David Berriman. He has overcome a lot in his life from what I've seen on his Facebook page. And he is now a men's leadership and empowerment coach. So really worked through his own struggles to be who he is today. So I'm really excited to unravel his journey and get all the juicy bits out. So we can explore this masculine journey. Enjoy. Hello, David Berriman. Welcome to Heart Warriors.
Thanks for having me, Gemma. Pleasure to be here.
Oh, this is going to be a great show, I know, because from that Facebook post that you did, I know we've got a whole lot to talk about. Just because you are living here, you're Aussie, have you ever been to Katajuda?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, and I don't know if you're aware, that's the masculine sacred site close to Uluru. So that's the energy coming through with this series. David, how would you describe the man you are today?
Connected, finally at peace within myself. And yeah, I guess just clear. So I'm very clear on who I am, what I'm here for, and the reason why I've walked the path I've walked.
Yeah, that sounds great. And what I'm guessing is it wasn't always that way. It's been quite a journey for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, life was definitely a lot harder than it has been in recent years. So yeah, it's a bit of a
Can
journey.
we go back to your childhood? What comes to mind when I ask you for your greatest challenge as a child?
I was in trouble a lot, so I've blocked out most of my memory of my childhood. I've been having the more work I do on myself, I've been having things come back to me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I grew up in a Christian household where religion was basically based on everything that what was right, what was wrong, and my biggest challenge as a child was always feeling like I was in trouble even before I got in trouble. So I had like the bad boy and I'm not good enough complex from a very young age.
Oh, so did that label come from your parents?
In a way, like they didn't consider me to be a bad boy. They would actually say I was a good boy. But you know, the actions speak louder than the words. And when you tend to be getting in trouble, whether you're at church, at home, at school, it was, yeah, kind of, it wasn't a label. My parents didn't label me. They always said I had a good heart and was a good boy. But yeah, I was always getting punished. So that was probably my biggest challenge, was living with a lot of fear and guilt.
I'd love to get into bring religion into this conversation. Are you religious now?
No.
Okay. So what's your earliest memory of religion disagreeing with maybe the energy that was in your heart?
I remember going to bed with fear in me about if I were to die at night, that I would go to eternal damnation, torture, worse than I could imagine. That's what kind of started to wake me up as a kid to what religion or my concepts of God was, because I started to think that if I was ever a father, I had this as a young boy. I would have been maybe 7 or 8 years old. If I was ever a father, I could never want to torture or punish my child in that way. So this was kind of where I was starting to question the concepts and the belief system that I was led to adopt as a young man, young kid even. So it was kind of like there was an incongruency there of a loving father, of unconditional love, that could also be annihilating and punishing and torturing the majority of the world. I picked up pretty quick that as far as my beliefs that were given to me under religion were to go, that the majority of the world is destined to hell. Like, that's the reality. So that was giving me a bit of a warped concept of what God was. And that's what started to really stir the question inside of me around religion at a young age. Yeah.
So that's pretty heavy stuff for a 7-year-old.
Yeah, I know. I've done a lot of work.
What, well, you say Christian, but what specific line of Christianity was it that you were
in? Yeah, born again Pentecostal Christian.
Okay, which I know nothing about. So is there any background you'd like to give us to that makes it different from other strands of Christianity, just to give us a brief insight?
I wouldn't exactly know the complete difference. What I grew up with the contrast of was there was like Catholics and Christians, and Catholics were wrong. So Christianity, under my experience, was a very judgmental cult, where if you didn't believe the particular teachings of the church, then you were, if you're not with us, you're against us, type of thing.
Right.
So very patriarchal, old school Christianity is the belief system that I was brought up under. So Old Testament with New Testament, which they kind of contradict each other of who and what God is. If you've read the Bible and seen Old Testament, fear, judgment, God's ruthless in the Bible if you actually read it.
Always, just as when you said about the Catholics, I'm like, wow, just because, the infighting within religions, when, ultimately they all preach to be a good person, is just like crazy, even though, they've all got their demons, let's say.
Yeah.
So what happened to this 7-year-old that started questioning religion? How did you express that? Did you keep it inside? How does a young boy deal with this, what you called incongruency?
It wasn't really safe for me to express or question. Okay? My dad was very firm, very stern with, by the book. This is what the Bible says. You couldn't, even to this day, it's very hard to invite him to open his mind to new understandings or new concepts. Very, very rigid in that box. So it wasn't exactly safe for me to bring up my questions around this. And so my strategy was, to keep things bottled inside more so than anything, which, is a very masculine thing in this day and age. Yeah. So there's a lot of suppression, living with that fear, living with that guilt and holding it inside. There wasn't really anywhere for me to express, or it wasn't encouraged for me to express. So there was a lot of energy as a child. So when I would express a lot, I would often find myself being punished. So I guess I wasn't going to push it to the next level and then question and come up against, the thing that was governing and ruling the roost at home, if that makes sense.
So were you being forced to carry out religious practices while in your childhood?
I wouldn't say forced. We had to go to church, but you're a kid, you go to church, you go visit, family or whatever you're doing. So encouraged to be a part of the church and go to the home studies and things like that. But I wouldn't say I was forced by any means, but church on Sundays until you were like a teenager was pretty much how it went. Yeah.
Okay. And how did, at what stage did you start? Would rebelling be the correct word? Rebelling against the church?
So I would have been about 11 or 12. Um, and it was mainly through music, like music and movies. So I was allowed to watch movies with violence in it, so things like Braveheart as a kid. So I was watching that like when that came out. I think I would have been about 8 or 9. But the sex scenes or the language was always what we weren't allowed to entertain in our house.
Okay.
So when I found bands like Korn, Slipknot, Marilyn Manson, that's where I found like my saviors, because they were of a frequency where they understood the pain, the hurt, the anger, and all the stuff that I had inside really resonated with their expressions. So yeah, once I found those sorts of music, very anti-authority, anti-establishment, anti-religion, that was really where my rebellion started with music. Then alcohol very much straight away. Like I was drinking heavily very, very young. Um, yeah, then I think I've had my first marijuana cigarette when I was about 11 or 12 years of age as well. So yeah, just as I'm coming into that early grade 6 to year 7, that's when I started to rebel against what I was led to believe was true about the world, if that makes sense.
And how was that received by your parents?
Well, they didn't really know about it, so I did everything in silence. So it wasn't until I was about 13. My dad really disliked my music. He's like, that's of the devil, like straight up. I remember he came into my bedroom. I would have been maybe 12 or 13 years of age. And I don't know if you know the band Slipknot or Mudvayne, or if you've seen any of their imagery. They look like proper demons, right? So they put the face mask on or makeup, and I had that all over my bedroom.
Right.
And yeah, at one stage, my dad came in, and when he seen it all, that was like, "What's this?" And yeah, made me tear it all down and things like that. So yeah, we started to have conflict around my taste in music. 12, 13 years of age. Yeah.
What does that do to a boy's identity when you're there trying to express what you resonate with, the pain inside, which ultimately is a conflict of, the institution that was placed upon you, and that gets torn down? Your dad comes in and tears that down and wants you to go in a different direction. What does that do to a young teenage boy's sense of self?
Again, made to feel like I wasn't good enough, that I was actually evil myself, because if I was attracted to this, so I had this inner conflict, where I would be judging myself. I created like this inner critic where I had the voice of God, like watching every single move that I made. So I always felt like I had, this voice of judgment watching me. So for me, what it did, I couldn't express, so I could drink. And when I could drink, I could let go of inhibitions and be free. So I found solace in drinking and smoking weed. I was smoking weed every single day, from the age of 13 right until almost my 18th birthday is when I stopped. So um, yeah, I had to escape or numb out certain parts of myself so I could feel free, if that makes sense.
Definitely. And, we've got a few different threads to go on here, but I'd like to continue along the religious one to bring it to where it is today. So, can we continue traveling along that path and just let us know how that then changed from that teenager's concept to the man you are today? How did that evolve? Your understanding of God, your attitude now towards religion, and what you identify now as your maybe sense of spirituality or or connection to the divine. How did that all play out?
All right, cool. Go on a bit of a journey with this. So yeah, I guess through my teen years, Marilyn Manson was one of my greatest influences, because he also grew up in Christian school with all the religion. And obviously, if you listen to any of his music, he's broken away from that and is a he's not against religion at the same time, but he's like a spokesperson for not fitting that mold, if that makes sense. So that kind of helped. There was a lot of lyrics in the music that I was listening to that was part of my awakening to spirituality as well. Like these dark voices were sharing concepts that I connected with as truth, more so than the religion that I was bringing up with. There's this one band called Lamb of God. They used to be called Burn the Priest. So, like, even growing up in religion, it attracted me to the dark, right? Yeah, as well. But one of their lyrics was, "This God that I worship, this demon I blame, conspire as one, exactly the same. They're exactly the same." Right? That was a bit of an awakening to what I knew to be true as well, is like the God of love, right, of creation. The shadow side of that is the darkness, the devil, if you will. And the more I came to connect with my heart, my truth, and understanding God of creation, was realizing that the creator loves the darkness as well, because it is love, right? It can't judge. So there was, I started to come to those understandings through a lot of deep work with psychedelics mainly. Yeah. My big awakening. So teen years were a bit of a struggle. I wasn't meant to date or sleep with anyone before marriage. Messed that up completely at a very young age, again and again. So I wasn't able to fit the mold. I did try going back to religion in my early adult years, like around 20, but it was the same thing. I just didn't feel like I fit in. I've always, the good thing about growing up in religion is a lot of the morals that my father passed on to me. So to be of integrity, to not lie, all these sorts of things. So I've always needed to be true to myself, and that hasn't always worked with what the church believed at that time. One of the biggest healings for me personally around religion was, I think it was my second journey with magic mushrooms. I had some shrooms, and I was laying down next to the heater looking up at this dot painting at my friend's house. His mum had made it. Yeah, she Aboriginal heritage. And I was connecting with it, and it came out, this snake sort of started to, a beautiful like serpent came out of the wall. And I'm watching this and just in deep awe and appreciation of the beauty that I'm witnessing. And that brought me into a conversation with God where I started to apologize for who I was, everything about me. I was sorry that I had sex before marriage, that I like to drink alcohol, that I'd taken magic mushrooms, that I like the dark things in life. And I started to like really just apologize for not being good enough, not being worthy, not being deserving, and still wanting God's love. Like really desiring that and wanting to do what was right or deemed right, but I just couldn't fucking do it, no matter how hard I tried. Like it was like I was doomed to live this path that was destined for destruction and hell. That's how I felt. I felt like I was, destined for pain, suffering, and to never be enough to, receive God's love for work. And as I was communicating that, I started to have the spirit speak back to me, and it's like, yeah, I love you no matter what. And I'm like, but what about this? And it's like, I love you. I love you. And every time I would give a rebuttal of all of my sins, my perceived sins, the reasons why I wasn't worthy of that love, I would just get these overwhelming sensations of love that I'd never felt. I'd never felt this in my life. So it was like, aside from when I'd taken ecstasy, it was like that level of euphoria. And the more that I was speaking about my shortcomings and my downfalls, the more I was just receiving this love and acceptance, this love and acceptance. So it kind of helped me break away from who I thought or what I thought God was, to actually have a direct experience with the divine. From there, that's been my path of being able to connect with the God of love. I can connect with the God of judgment if I choose to. Yeah, like it's a choice. What energy do I want to connect with, and what do I want to be of service to, if that makes sense. So I've chosen that path to be of service to love. Like that's what I'm here on the planet for, is to bring people back to love and to help them work through all the stuff that disconnects them from that. The beliefs, the stories, the traumas, all the things that disconnect us from our heart. It's like the obstacle is away. If we can learn to go into any problem we have from a place of love, understanding, and acceptance, yes, we can heal and transmute anything. That has been my experience and what I have to share with others, because I had so much contracted, dense energy that held me back and made me not want to be here. Like I just wanted to kill myself many, many times throughout my journey. But I was scared of the afterlife. So I couldn't even take my own life, right? Like that was the fear that, because it's worse. And it was worse than what I was experiencing at those stages. You don't really want it to get worse. So in saying that, I think that belief system served me well. Like many of the concepts and values that I learned through the church have served me. Okay. And it's also been my path of facing hell, facing fear, and learning to be strong and trust in love no matter what I come up against in the world. So it's definitely served me now, but it was like almost the first 30 years of my life were pretty challenging more often than not, if that makes sense. Even after those experiences of waking up and having connection with the divine, it was still a lot of programming and traumas to work through, if that makes sense.
Oh, definitely. So I've got two questions for you. One, I'd like to know what is your definition of God now? And then I'd like to carry on with, if there was a man watching who is, because a lot's coming out now about religion and, you know, the truth behind the control system and the indoctrination. A man's starting to realize that it has been an indoctrination program of control, and he's trying to unravel, well, what is true, what is not true. Where could you guide him to seek the answers?
Yes, good question. I'm looking forward to sharing that. I'm going to give all the gifts that I found on my journey. My definition for God, I don't believe that we can actually give a definition without human understanding. Like it's everything. God is absolutely everything. And it's also dependent on what you believe to be true, the experience that you're going to have with the divine.
Yes.
If you believe in a God of judgment, of punishment, of using fear to control and manipulate you, then that will become your reality. Your beliefs become your decisions, and they shape your world. So it's really up to the individual as to what or who God is going to be to you. So for me, God of love. And I believe that God also has this very dark, twisted shadow side to it. And I've had some deep journeys where I've gone back and learned to love all of the, evils and corruption in the world from a place of like understanding. It's about the contrast. The world could not have been any other way than what it is. So we need to love the dark as much as the light. Doesn't mean that we want to approve of and encourage all that, but we can love and accept it. And that's actually how it allows it to heal. When the light can see and not judge, it allows the shadows to be transmuted and healed, is what I feel and believe. So for anyone listening to this who's got those religious programmings that have ruined your life as far as you're concerned, or just really confused you, or have you feeling stuck, or like you're not good enough, like you're not worthy, or anything like that, Conversations with God by Neale Walsh was one of the most healing pieces of literature that you could ever experience growing up in a Christian or religious household. I strongly recommend, get on Audible. You can get the first 3 books for like $1 credit. So that's really worth doing. There's free versions on YouTube if you just want to try it out. But so healing, because the voices that are used on especially the audio of it, you've got the feminine and the masculine voices of God speaking back to Neale Walsh through the book. So that also had me lean more towards connecting with the mother of God. Like, Father God, we hear that a lot in religion, but how often do you
Yes.
hear Mother God,
Mm.
right? So for me, the relationship with the father was more controlling, more fear, more judgment, because, despite all my dad's amazing characteristics, those were part of his religion and his programming was control, fear, judgment. Although I believe he did everything from a place of love and trying to be a good Christian by the book. I know that. I know my father. But it was just a really messed up way to experience it as a child. Like, it doesn't know how. Yeah. But connecting with that mother God, so it's that loving energy of creation. That was really like powerful for me. Is to go, all right, if Father God, I'm sort of getting this judgment stuff that I'm still working through, maybe I can go to the more nurturing side of the Creator. So that's been part of my healing journey with that. I guess, yeah, conversation with God's probably the big one. I've had many other books like The Untethered Soul was a good one as well. But like to awaken and redefine what you believe God is, just conversation with God should take care of that.
Yes.
And plant medicines have been massive for me as well, because I've seen just how much is going on that we have no idea about. Like, again, to describe God with human understanding, like when you've had those experiences being everything all at once, you can't really put it into a box, if that makes sense.
Oh, definitely. And that's a series that was one of the first series I read way back in the early 90s. It was pretty new then, and I was getting into a lot of this literature. I wasn't brought up particularly religious, but so it wasn't that conversation, but just in my awakening and my understanding, and it's set out in question and answer form. And it's so easy and simple, and the answers you get are just like, wow, wow, wow. So I thoroughly recommend that series. It's brilliant. So I'll drop it in the link, Conversations with God series and Neale Donald Walsh. David, let's go into your adulthood now. What would you say was your deepest, darkest moment as a man?
Oh, deepest, darkest moments. My most recent painful experience, because I've had a lot of dark moments. Like,
I know.
oh,
Where do you want to take this conversation?
exactly. Being a Libra, though, I have balance. So I've had really high highs of like that euphoric love, acceptance, and then one of my most horrific experiences was all of my subconscious programming come into play. I'll mention this and then I'll mention my most recent one, because this was a part of my awakening. It was a mushroom journey gone bad. So, we've all heard about bad trips. Well, this was like the epitome of what a bad trip can be. The week coming into this journey, this was before I started consciously working with plants. This was David is reckless. He's gone out, he's picked a bunch of mushrooms, and we didn't weigh them or do any dosages. Like, we weren't really into checking out the internet of what was cool to do with psychedelics. The way we grew up is we just picked them and ate them and drank with them and partied. So, very reckless way to indulge in very powerful teachers. So I had a full ego death where the week coming into the journey, I was researching the devil and hell, because I wanted to demystify the myths. Like, what's actually true here? Is this character a real thing? Is it something that we've made up? Like, so I was looking into some dark bands, dark movies, like of the people that have reviewed these, to try and get to the crux of what the darkness was all about. So that was the week leading into this. I was on a mission to have an experience of connecting with the devil or the darkness, to just know if it was legit, right? Do I need to go and be a good Christian boy? It was kind of what was that, right? About 24 years of age. So through the journey, I'm eating the mushrooms, I'm drinking beers, and I wasn't really smoking weed at that stage, but for some crazy reason, I decided to smoke a bong. So I had a bong after I'd just been eating mushrooms by the handful, drinking a slushy, had a few beers. So it was on a mission, right? Had the bong and then sat down to watch the cartoon movie Hercules, which is almost like the story of Jesus in many ways if you watch it through religious programming. So I'm putting myself into the movie, and this was like basically I was the lead character, as we all do to some degree when we're watching a movie. Taking mushrooms and everything else I'd done really put me into that movie.
Right.
And then when Hades comes up to meet Hercules, Hades comes out of my TV screen and is the devil in full form. And he's like, David, you're coming with me. And that was my descent into hell. So I went into the darkness. I left this reality. I had my body torn apart by demons. So it was like no more body. And I was then stuck with nothingness but the feeling of aloneness and regret. So it felt like an eternity that I was in that place. That was like the darkest period of my time. I had a bit of PTSD after that. By the time I did come back into my body, I wasn't sure if this was real or whether I was actually back here. And I had this story playing out that this was just a trick, that I got to think and believe that I was back in Earth, but really I was in eternal damnation, and I was just getting this as a teaser, so I knew what I was missing out of. That was, yeah, really dark. So that was all my subconscious conditioning being experienced through a psychedelic journey, which set me on a bit of a trajectory to like find out more about that and what was real, what wasn't. It took me about 6 months till I was like, okay, I think I'm actually on Earth after that experience. And yeah, so that was I kept having relapses of those experiences too. The fear would come up and like overtake me for a period of time. So I had to get really comfortable with sitting in fear until the point where I basically gave myself the experiences of the worst things that I could ever imagine taking place to me, sitting with that and being able to accept it. And basically that's how I started to reclaim my power from all the fear that I had. Does that make sense?
Definitely. And that's what I was going to ask you, because, you know, I mean, I personally don't, you know, have these demonic entities that I'm aware of, but I know I do read things on Facebook that people have got, you know, demonic entities around or negative energies, and they're influenced by it. And you obviously being in that trip, first I want to ask, because I've never done trip. Not that I wouldn't, but I just haven't really had the opportunity to, or gone out and sought it. But are you aware when you're in that state of hell? Are you aware it's a trip?
You can, now that I'm seasoned, I'm good, right?
Right.
That time, like it's as real as anything else. So you know, the fear is this is not going to end. Okay, so when you sit with someone for the first time taking mushrooms, not that I do this, but if I ever did do this, I would prepare them by talking about, look, there's going to be a journey. There may be some times where you go into some stuff that's uncomfortable. That will pass, and you will come back to this reality. You know, you're not going to get stuck in the places that you go. You will always come back and come back to your breath. So being well seasoned with these modalities is a different experience to when you're got no education, no preparation, because as far as you know, like that's it now. Okay, so yeah, so that experience, I didn't know if I was ever coming back. I thought that was it. It was done. I missed out. I couldn't come back and tell the people that I loved how to get it right. That was like the biggest regret for me. But these days, like I can go here. If I'm faced with, there's less and less darkness in my journeys now, which is really beautiful, because it was, especially after that trip, every time I'd go into a journey, I was faced with like demons everywhere. And I learned.
I wanted to ask, when those demons are ripping you apart, are you feeling that physically, or is that like a movie playing out in front of you? You're actually feeling the depths of the pain, the physical pain?
Yeah, I can't fully remember it these days, but it hurt.
Wow.
Yeah, it was horrific, really painful, horrific. Yeah.
Okay, so as I wanted to get back to what I was saying about, so some people do have these what they call demonic entities coming in and out. So do you think that is a reflection of as within, so without?
Yeah, we attract what we are.
Right.
So if we're at a denser frequency, right, or if we're opened ourselves up, alcohol, drugs, plant medicines, okay, whatever's in the environment can sort of come in. Now, if you're in a place of fear or a lower frequency, a lower, denser energy, anger, shame, guilt, especially fear, though, right? You're going to attract all of that because we all have it within us to some degree, but it's like, what are you choosing to be? The way to repel it, I guess, is by coming back to the power of your heart, coming back to love.
Wow.
So through journeys now, if like some stuff comes in, I'm like, all right, cool. I stand strong. I call in my protection and come back to my heart. And it's like nothing but love and respect for whatever you are. I'm not judging any of this, but the answer is no. So I've learned that they can bring contracts and offers and like entities, demons. They kind of like to be able to be involved with the human experience and use vessels for doing things. Like that's you've seen people who are possessed and stuff like that. So there's agreements we can make under my understanding. It's probably not everyone's reality, but it's been through my experience. So yeah, but like you said, so within, like you're going to attract. It's there to show you what's in you that you choose to have there if you want it, or you can choose to love, accept, and transmute, which is kind of what I'm in the process of doing this whole lifetime.
Yeah, I love how you said that because I always felt it was that, even though I haven't experienced it personally, because I know I'm got self-empowered that I don't allow those things anywhere near me. It's me that's in control. It's not them in control of me that can invade my space. So yeah, it's and have you got any more to say around that subject? Because I think it's really important. It hasn't come up before. Can you talk to men who maybe coming into awareness, well, hang on, okay, so I'm the one that could be empowered enough to send these away instead of them, sort of using me as a host energy. Can you speak to that, please, David?
Absolutely. So first off, if you're experiencing that, there's nothing wrong with you. Okay, you're not bad, you're not demonic, you're not evil. Okay, you're not less than because you've attracted that. Okay, everything serves you, and I've lived a very dark place to come to who I am today. So I believe also that the more you can face and overcome the darkness, the stronger your light can be in many ways. If you're in a position where that's taking place, the first thing is not to judge yourself. Okay? Working out what you need to sort of bring yourself into a higher frequency. So you can look at behaviors that you may be engaging with that are attracting darkness. So can be anything from, if you're involved in sexuality, can be a very big opening for people, especially if there's shame around it. Yeah, because it's a lower density, right? Like sexuality with love, if you're like making love or, even self-pleasure in a place of like love and connection with yourself, you're not going to have any, critters or gremlins coming into your space, right? Because it's a love and expansive, right? They can't be in that environment. So when it comes to that, the first thing is to know that there's nothing wrong with the darkness either. Like it's when we judge it, it's like what we resist persists. So we come into a place of love and understanding because I love the darkness. I love like that. I don't love the experience that I've had in it, but I love what it's created. Even my taste in music is still very much metal. I just use discernment when I listen to it because I know that there's an energy exchange that's taking place. Okay? So if I were to be drinking or opening myself up with any sort of substances, I probably don't want to be listening to heavy metal music at those times, right? Especially if you're not quite strong in yourself and really present, because you can end up having lots of stuff to clear off. But again, like, not to judge it, but it's about coming back to your center. So if you're feeling like the darkness follows you and things like that, you can look at your behaviors. You know, if there's negative ways of thinking, what are you feeding yourself? What movies are you watching? What TV series? There's a lot of stuff that I used to like when I was a kid, like horror movies. I couldn't comfortably go through that experience of watching that like I used to. It's like I don't want to invite that in. It's very different. Whereas I used to seek that, you know, in the dark of the movie. Oh, you know, I want that. But it doesn't serve me, and I don't feel good with it. So life is very much about coming to a place of feeling good within ourselves, and realizing that anything that's not allowing that to take place is actually the way for you to move forward. There's power, there's treasure in going into discomforts. So if you find that you do have a lot of darkness in your life, well, maybe you could look for ways that you can start to bring a bit more light in, you know, spending time in nature, you know, looking at your community. Who are you hanging around with? I've been very blessed with the women that have come into my life. I've attracted earth angels. They come in, they've helped me to love and accept myself because they've seen the darkness, seen the demons, and then go, David, you're actually a very beautiful man. You've got a beautiful heart. This isn't you, right? But there's also nothing wrong with this. Like, I've had women love me in my darkness as much as my light, which has allowed me to love myself. And that's the thing. The most powerful force on earth is love. So if you come into a place of love and acceptance, love for the darkness and the experience allows you to navigate and move through it rather than judging and contracting and becoming stuck in the experience. So when I get a trigger, you know, which could be darkness or evil or whatever it is for someone, when I get a trigger, I know that that's actually my way forward. So instead of like trying to run away, suppress, sedate, or distract ourselves, which, you know, the main things that people do not to face all the stuff, I'm actually looking for opportunities of when I feel triggered or discomfort to go into it with a place of love, understanding as my higher self. I know what it's like to be in my higher energy. It's that place of like love and wisdom, and facing off with those parts actually helps you to reclaim your power. So the more darkness you've got, I believe the more power you can have access to if you know how to start to navigate and work with it. If that makes sense.
I love that. And there's nothing more powerful than someone who's speaking from experience. So you get it, whereas I don't. So I'm good at asking questions. So, but you know, you've walked through it and you've come out the other end. Do you feel now that you are in the light? Have you left those demons behind?
Yeah, I'm definitely in my light. It's not to say I don't still go through times where darkness can come into my life. But I have that much experience and that much understanding, not just like you said, I didn't read all this stuff in the book. Okay? I have had books like Conversations with God come and remind me of things.
Yes.
Right? So, but as far as darkness, I know that I'm fully equipped to never get caught in the fear for longer than I need to, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, the books are tools, but the actual value of experience, that's why as a writer, I don't write about anything I haven't experienced because it feels fake for me. And the same with you. You're not talking about theory you've read from a book. You're talking about life experience. So that's amazing. Do you want to move into what you were saying? You had a painful experience not so long ago. Have we finished that other topic and we're ready to move on?
Yeah, cool. So we can do that. That experience helped me get really good at using the tools that I use both myself and as a coach and share with the men I work with. So at the end of 2019, I separated with a partner that was like a very strong soul connection that we had together. So we were around each other basically 24/7 since we got together. It was intoxicating. It was like probably the greatest love I'd ever experienced. And at the end of 2019, we ended up separating. Neither of us seen it coming, which was all well and good because I was fine to then go and live out the dream that I wasn't fulfilling in the relationship. So I was going to move to Bali and set up business and live there. So that was okay. I was able to move on to the next thing. So I thought I did all my healing in the first month. And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. Pack my bags, get out of this house. I left for Bali in February of 2020. And something happened in March of 2020. And I was in Bali for like 2 weeks, and then I came off my scooter. I ended up in a Bali hospital with 6 stitches in my back. I had some form of cold. It could have been COVID. I don't know. I didn't buy into any of that stuff. So I was just like, I was smashed. I was really defeated in many ways. And I was left with the decision, do I decide to live in Bali illegally for the next however long because my visa was going to run out and all that sort of stuff? Or do I come back to Australia where I had no home, no relationship? It was like I didn't have anywhere to go. I wasn't going to go back to my hometown of Ballarat. There's nothing, like, I just don't ever want to live there again. I won't choose to do that. But I'd left my relationship in North Queensland, so I didn't have a house there. And I came back to the east coast of Australia on Manly, just near Sydney. I basically went on my deep healing journey. So I connected with a healer who tends to trigger people's stuff, and like it all comes up when you're around this woman. So all my stuff came to the surface. Everything was really challenging because, being a coach and working for myself, if I don't perform, I don't get paid, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going through all my stuff. I'm now living in Manly, which is one of the most expensive places. I was paying between $500 to $600 for a room in a shared house per week, which I could basically get a villa in Bali for very similar money for a month. So there was the financial pressure, there was the grief, right? All the grief that I'd never really dealt with from childhood all the way through, because I had alcohol and drugs and work and gym and all these things to distract me and keep me moving forward without really facing what was there. So now that I had the deepest sense of loss that I'd ever experienced, it was like, losing someone that you really, really care about. They're basically dead now, and you can't ever go back to that. That was how I felt, and I was waking up. I'm a men's coach, right, running my group coaching program, but every single day struggling to actually do life myself. Gyms were shut down for a season, so I couldn't go to the gym. I was stressed and fearful about money. That was coming up again because I was like, I can't produce in this energy that I'm stuck in. And this is where, I realized that I had been avoiding and running away from my negative emotions for a long time. If I didn't like how I felt, I would drink, smoke, fuck, or go lift, those were sort of my coping mechanisms. When I was a child, it was music and movies, distraction. 2020 taught me how to sit still and be with myself in the discomfort. I remember there was this one moment where I'm like, what do I actually really, really want in my life right now? Because, it's basically going through a death and rebirth experience. And all I wanted was to be able to experience peace, which never appealed to me in my life. Right? I like chaos. So it was, I just wanted to feel peace. That took me on a deeper journey where I started to learn to connect with the parts of myself, like hurt, grief, loss. Shame and guilt I'd done a lot around already. So I wasn't those were probably the early 20s, dealing with the shame, the guilt. Then my relationship really helped me with this woman that I separated with. She taught me to not feel guilt or shame for who I was. So I came to love and accept myself through that period. But then it took another broken heart for all of the other stuck energy that was within me, the grief, the hurt, the loss was there. So I had to go into, I call it going into my garden, weeding the garden. And coming to know, love, and accept all those parts of myself that I was trying to run away from, because I realized it was there and it wasn't going anywhere until I faced the music, if that made sense. So I spent 2020 going into my garden, using these tools, and then I was able to come and share them with my guys. So now they're able to do the same thing. Like, whatever comes up, problem, trigger, let's go into it, sort it out, move forward.
Oh, I love that. We've got so much to get into here. Now, I'm really interested in the way you acknowledge that, or this substance abuse of, we could probably, can we say of any kind, whether it's alcohol, drugs, even plant medicines. Now, this is a big subject around weed, pot, whatever. I don't know what I don't know what you want to call it, but you know, is that, from your experience? Well, one, do you still use it, because that'll put some context on it? And two, is it still a numbing substance to get away from entering this garden of your heart?
It can be. So I will use with discernment. So I haven't smoked a bong for like 10 years. I'll occasionally smoke a joint. I do find it's not necessarily my preferred method. If I'm going to have that substance, I'll tend to have it as an oil. It gives you a different feeling. And I'll always check on my intention as to, if I am going to partake in that, like, what's my actual intention here? And
nice.
If it's avoiding responsibility, so that's my thing. If I were to go towards alcohol, I used to think that I just loved to drink because I just love drinking. That was my thing. And even when I like stopped drinking, it was still part of my identity that I love drinking. What I recognized is, from a lot of the healing work that I've done, when I stopped drinking, the thing inside of me that would draw me to want to drink, I realized was actually pain. Even if I didn't realize it was pain all those times, there was this part inside of me that needed that alcohol. Because if I drink, like, I don't have 2 beers. I have a very strong drink if I'm going to do that.
Right.
But that was driven by the pain inside of me, not because I just love to get drunk, which I thought it was. So in terms of drinking, like, I'm not really a drinker these days. It'll be a lot like special occasion. Again, I'll check on my intention if I am to do so. When it comes to plant medicines, look, I've used them to get high, absolutely. Now, if I am to do a ceremony, I'll check in as to, well, I've usually got an intention already, right? Like, there's something coming up in my life, and I'm like, all right, cool. I'm not quite getting there fully with my tools while I'm sober. I could use some assistance, right? And they're called teacher plants, because essentially you get the wisdom and guidance of the spirit of the plant to help assist you to maybe go into the parts unseen, right? Bypass the conscious mind. So it's a very different relationship now in my 30s as what it had been my whole life. There's times where I'll have mushrooms because I do just want to have the experience and get high. And I'll consciously make that decision, and I'm absolutely fine with that at the time. But I'm not taking substances to try and avoid myself or my problems now. Instead, I will get out my journal, or I will do some processes to clear and release and get back on track.
Oh, look, you just clarified it so beautifully, just that self-awareness of, okay, so I'm reaching for you know, a joint or a drink or, you know, whatever it is, chocolate even. So, you know, me, like, just pause. Why? What was I feeling 2 minutes ago that I then started thinking I want, you know, whatever it is that I want? And so what is that process? Because I think for women, we're more in tune with our feelings and emotions. It's probably an easier process for the feminine energy. How would you direct or speak to a masculine who's recognizing this pattern in himself? Okay, so I could acknowledge that maybe I could pause and acknowledge that I'm feeling pain before I reach for my drink or my joint or whatever it is. Where does he go from there?
Yeah, so 100% women intuitively can just drop in and connect, or the feminine can do that easier than the masculine. I have both a strong masculine and strong feminine, so I'm very blessed. I've got the balance again. Liberals, we have a good balance in life. For a guy, so what I found is we need strategies and we need tools. We need an actual process. Okay, so it's all well and good to tell me to stop and connect with and ask what my intention is. Okay, but like, then what?
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. So for a man, like, it is that take a breath, like, come back to your center. You can do something like, you know, the check-in can be like, why do I want this drink? Right? You'll sometimes get a bullshit answer. Right? So if you're still drawn to it, like, you know, okay, well, what's behind that? What's behind that? What I found is taking the time to slow down, like, instead of being reactive, even if it's the chocolate, right? Yeah, take a breath, like, connect in with.
Take note.
Yeah, well, that's the thing too. Like, I give the guys tools so they can bring out their phone and go into a self-discovery process to work out what's behind it and what's under it. Because whatever's driving us to that substance, again, is where our next nugget of gold is, right? Whatever that trigger is. Yeah. So for a guy, it's like, you can be in a place of being the victim where life happens to you and you react to things. And I love using this language with a guy because most men don't want to be considered a victim. Even if they've been victims, we're not a victim. I'm a warrior, right?
Yeah.
What are you going to choose to be if you've got the choice? Especially when we ask the masculine. Feminine's the same though. They love the warrior. No one wants to play the role of the victim or identify. Okay, some people get a lot of validation out of it,
Yeah.
but when you're talking to, you know, do you want to be a victim or a warrior? Take personal responsibility. This is where we can actually go, well, I'm going to be that warrior. And instead of reacting to things and just going down that path, take a moment to stop, breathe, and then self-talk. We can ask the questions like, okay, what's happened? Like you said, what's happened in the last few minutes? Why do I want this? It could be the chocolate, because many people it is food. Okay? For me, it's exercise. If all of a sudden, out of my routine, I just want to go and lift something at the gym, I'm like, oh, that's actually my escape, which I've learned. Like, it's a healthier escape, but yeah, kept me here through my 20s for sure. But I'm at a different level of awareness these days where if I'm going to distract myself by moving my body, there's probably something there for me to delve into. So you can choose, like, do you want to have the path of growth and evolution, or do you want to numb out and avoid and end up suffering over the longer term, losing all your things? Or do the harder work, be a warrior, face what's there by actually taking the time to slow down and connect with yourself. Simple breathing, like box breathing, where you take 4 seconds to breathe in, hold for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds. Do that for 4 rounds. That'll generally slow down a person enough to actually connect in and be like, okay, what's there? What's happening? I teach a self-talk process where we actually speak to the trigger. So it might be anger, frustration, hurt, or a different identity, whatever it is. You can talk to it and, you know, ask it what's going on with it, so it can start to be heard, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. or going into a journal process, which I love journaling myself. It's probably one of my most powerful processes. I teach a structure that you go into it, you get the truth behind what's going on, and then you get the action to move forward with everything that you've learned from self-discovery through those processes. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's fascinating. When you said you speak to it, the trigger. So do you see these emotions or these triggers as being something external to self that we might think is part of ourself, but you're now separating them so you can speak to it? How does that conversation play out?
Yeah, well, firstly, we're not our behaviors, right? So we're not we are everything, and we are also not it at the same time. Like, it's that weird paradox. So by disassociating from it, right, instead of like, I'm sad, right? Because now, let's go with depression. I'm depressed. Okay. So now that I'm telling myself I'm depressed, what would a depressed person do? Well, they'd sit like this and they would, blame everyone else and feel really disempowered. And like, if I'm depressed, I become the emotion. I've
Yes.
completely disconnected from who I really am.
Mm.
But, I'm experiencing depression. Okay, well, that's different, right? Because I'm not in it, and that's not who I am, and that's not what I'm going to base every decision. I'm experiencing some depression. So we acknowledge it first, acknowledge it. But then it's like you disassociate by being the voice of reason or higher understanding for that part of yourself, because it's a part of you, but it's not who you are.
Mm.
And there's nothing wrong with any parts of us. We say negative emotions, whereas there's no such thing as a negative emotion in the grand scheme of things. Everything's here to serve us. I see it as more of a dense frequency and a high frequency. And I like being at a high frequency.
Yeah.
So I step into that higher frequency, and that allows me to work with the lower aspects or the more dense or challenging parts of self, instead of getting caught up in anger and doing something stupid. Go, oh, I have anger. Okay, this is a part of me. Okay, anger. So what's going on? What would you like to share with me? So that way we're becoming more of our higher self as well, instead of allowing our emotions to run our life. Because I believe in connecting with your emotions, but you don't want them to completely run your life, especially with we're all pretty crazy these days in this world with so much going on.
Yeah.
It's a lot of emotional roller coasters. So our emotions are here to teach us. I believe that's the path of spirituality, is how we're feeling.
Yes.
Yeah. So instead of saying that I don't want experiences and judging it and shaming it, it's like, okay, how I can accept that this is a part of me. I am not this emotion, but it is a part of me. And it allows that part of you to give you the wisdom and the treasure to then take what you've learned and deal with something or move forward with what you've learned, if that makes sense.
Definitely. Great explanation. Thank you, David. You mentioned anger. Now, was anger or is anger a part of your journey? And I know it is a part of many men's journey. So how do you either what do you use to when you're experiencing anger, or what do you recommend to other men who you teach, or you might see that ask about anger? What have you got to say around anger?
Yeah, so anger is one of my favorite emotions.
Mm.
Yeah. It's like, if you look at the levels of consciousness, right? We have anger is right before courage.
Yes.
Okay, so anger is like the lid. When we have sadness, we have guilt, we have shame, we push all that and we become angry because I'm not fucking dealing with those emotions. Right? So it's a powerful emotion. It's, if you're an alchemist, which we all are, it's very good with alchemy. So yeah, I had a lot of suppressed anger and rage. Like, I was strapped a lot as a kid. Okay, so physical punishment for being a little boy meant that I would then go and punch on at school. So I'd never start the fight. My dad gave me these really wise words for a kid. David, you don't start the fight, but if you get hit, by golly, you finish it. That's what that's what I grew up with. So if I had like a lot of hurt from at home, I would then be at school and then attract bullies and push them to the point where they threw a punch, so I could let out all that rage. So if we try and suppress rage, it's going to cause illness. So if we've got anger, again, anger is not a negative emotion. Anger can make you get shit done. It was because of hurt and anger that I first learnt commitment when I did my first bodybuilding competition. I just had my heart broken, so I was very hurt, very angry, and so I channeled that into constructing a new identity and overcoming my self-doubt, limiting beliefs, because I use the anger as my driving force. So anger, if you've got a problem with anger, firstly, like, I've had to do clearings with my emotions. So I use either timeline reset or timeline therapy to clear and release the stored emotion in our body. Okay, so if you're a guy right now and you're like easy to anger and you get triggered and like you just want to punch holes through fucking walls or whoever's in your path, then you've been storing your anger for a very long time, right? So for example, like someone who gets road rage, it's got very little to do with the car that didn't put in their blinker. Okay? It's the suppressed anger and rage that we carry around energetically that's just waiting for a trigger to be let out. And this is the same with all of our emotions that we store. So if you've got that, then again, there's nothing wrong with the anger. Don't judge yourself for it. Don't shame yourself for it. But take personal responsibility about doing the work to clear some of it, because it's not going to serve you to hold that and be running from that place. You can work with any person that's done timeline therapy, NLP certified. You just jump on your socials, you're going to find someone that can help you with your problem. That's what I would suggest. I'm one of those people. I work with guys all the time, with addiction, with emotions, not being able to deal with and live healthy emotional relationships with themselves and others because of all the chaos that they've got. So firstly, I would look to see someone do a session to clear and release the stored anger from your energetic body. Because then you're not carrying it around so much anymore. Okay. Then again, next time you're feeling anger, cool. How can you use it constructively? Right? Like my anger, I will use to destroy something that no longer serves me now that I'm aware, instead of just burning it all to the ground and paying the consequences. I'll look at, well, what is it that I want to destroy and recreate? Like, how do I want to use this? What conversation do I need to have? What project do I need to commit myself to right now to change this situation? What research? Who? Ask the question. Like, guys try and do it all on our own. Okay. We're not meant to. We used to live in tribes. We'd go to an elder or a brother and go, bro, fucking dealing with this. Yeah. Got any advice? Yeah. I learned something so beautifully from the feminine when I would watch my girlfriends over the years in the morning go for a walk and talk to their friend or their mum. Right. I'm like, guys don't do that. If we've got a bit of stuff going in the morning, we're going to hold on to that all day and it's going to be everyone else's problem.
Yes, yeah.
Feminine will talk about it.
Yeah. That's such a revelation. Wow. Have you got, and just while we wrap up the anger subject, are there any tips you can give if someone is feeling that anger? We've all felt on that brink where we're going to explode and it's just not the right place and time to be able to explode. What can a man do in that situation?
All right. You can go to the gym and use that anger if you like. I like to do that. Yeah. Especially if I know it's energy moving through me. Yeah, that's one way. Yeah. The other is, bro, you've got your breath. You've always got your breath. You can calm your nervous system through your breath. Taking time to do the thing that you don't want to do, slow down that breathing. Right? Like, that's the difference between doing something that you're going to regret for the rest of your life and coming back to your center. Like, take that time to breathe. right? And then if you need to phone a friend, phone a friend. If you need to put on some healing hang drum music, good frequency stuff to try and calm yourself down, do that.
I love that, because just that, what you said, to do something you're going to regret for the rest of your life. It's really that pinnacle, that cliff, isn't it? That cliffhanger, and just to be able to just stop and breathe. Wow, if someone can start incorporating that, that's massive. Thank you for that. I know you've got so much more we could share. So we've got about 20 minutes left. What haven't we touched on that you feel is important to bring into this conversation around men and masculinity?
I feel like there's a desire in every man to create. Right? We're creative beings. And if we're dealing with frustrations in life, whether it's like whatever area of life that you're frustrated or feeling stuck or contracted in, that's always going to be your biggest blessing and your biggest gift. Like just knowing that we are emotional beings, we're going to get triggered, we're going to have problems. We've been taught not to deal with our problems. There's easy ways to get instant release, distraction, even to the term these days, if you want connection, sexual, emotional, like that sort of connection. There was a time where a man had to, pretty much be a man to be able to attract a partner, to have those connections. Now they've got everything at the click of the button. So we've become lazy and gone to instant gratification. Whereas it's actually hard work where we get the most fulfillment. It's not to say it has to be hard and you're going to bust yourself, but men thrive in challenges. We do. So I would suggest to any man listening to this, if you're going through challenges or problems, which we all do, right? Every day I've got something, right? Really learn to adopt the concept that the obstacle is going to be the way. The challenge is there to create the change. Your problems are like your path to progress. And everything that you fear, right, there's nothing to fear except fear in itself, because fear is where you hold your power. So if you've got triggers, if you've got fears, things that you're concerned about, if you want to be a real warrior, right, we're talking heart warriors, do the fucking work and face the battle, right? Because that's where the gold is always. And that's where you become a stronger warrior, by actually going into battle, getting your reps up. So you're going to be challenged whether you like it or not. So it's your relationship with challenge, your relationship with problems. Right? That's what I'll share there too. Everything in life is relationships, everything. Relationship with self, relationship with money. If you've got money problems, it doesn't matter what's going on in the economy. Okay? It's your beliefs in your relationship, how you think about, how you feel about money, how you feel about people with money, how you use it. And everything's a reflection of you. So it's never her fault. Just want to put that there. Yeah. She's showing you your stuff. Everything's a reflection. So everything's reflecting back to us what we believe on some level about the world to be true. So we don't get anywhere blaming anything or anyone for our problems. The only path to live this life is a path of personal responsibility, taking ownership, and being willing to do the work. That's what I would share. Yeah,
amazing. David, what practices have you incorporated into your daily life in the last, say, maybe decade that you could talk on, because they've been really either healing tools or calming tools or just, daily practices?
Yeah, cool. So one thing I'll share as we get into that is having structure to my day has been huge. It's quite masculine to have structure, but you don't want to be too rigid. When you're getting into the healing work, it can put you in a feminine energy where you may get a bit floaty and a bit misguided and a bit lost. So I believe that it's important to have structure with how we live our day-to-day routines, to a degree, like not too rigid, but how do you start your day? How do you finish your day? Okay. My practices, so journaling every day. Yeah, that's like connecting with myself. The day when it's the hardest to journal is usually when I'm going to get the most gold out of it. Setting up my day the night before has been something that I wish I'd learned before the last 12 months. Because I'll try and start my day in the morning. So I'd be getting caught in my head, figuring out, well, do I need to do this first? Yeah. As a man, we want to spend as less time as possible in our head. That's where we create our problems. So the way that I do that is I set up my day the night before. So I've got intention, I've got direction, and I know what I'm working on. So I've got purpose every single day. That makes sense. Another practice I use is breathing. So I'm a breathwork instructor, but I tend to mainly do like the Wim Hof breathing, just my nervous system, and daily movement. That's like a non-negotiable for me. If I've tried doing the calmer mornings where I sat down and meditate, it doesn't work with me. I find I need to move my energy first.
Yeah, nice.
So yeah, movement, journaling, breathwork, the main ones that I use each day.
I'm really interested in the breath work, and we haven't had anyone yet talk in any depth about it. So are you able to expand a bit more there and maybe, just to give us a couple of examples that might help specifically men?
Yeah, okay. So breathwork, one, can release DMT and get you high. Okay, that was one of my inclinations for it. I'm like, yeah. And if for anyone who's experienced breathwork, you can get quite high by doing it. It's really powerful. I use it to release beliefs, or if I've got anger, breathwork session can pass it. Yeah, because it kind of loosens up everything and allows it to be released. I use a rebirth process when I'm doing it with people, where we get their old identity, their old beliefs, the things they want to let go of, and then create like the new identity, what they want to call in. Then we use a breathwork session to release and like have a rebirth process, if that makes sense. Yeah. So we can release traumas from the body as well. Okay, so everything's stored energetically. Breath is life, so you're breathing in life and allowing old energies to move out. It's good for your nervous system, good for calming your mind. If you struggle with meditation and you want to be able to meditate, breath work beforehand can be really amazing, because it truly does just clear your mind, so you're able to sit there content.
Is that because it brings you into the present moment? If you're focusing on your breath, you're focusing on now, so then you start to leave behind the things you were worried about tomorrow or you were regretting yesterday. Is that why it works so well?
Yeah, it oxygenates like the whole body as well. But yeah, of course, like it's an act of presence.
Yeah.
So similar if you're journaling, right? You can't be out here thinking too much about that if you're actually journaling through a process. So anything to get present, but absolutely, yeah, breath is a very powerful modality to bring you back into a place of presence, while also clearing out anything that no longer serves you. So it's like it's a win-win. Yeah.
David, what would you say is your highest value as a man?
Health. Yeah. Because it covers everything.
Yeah. Is that just physical health, or are you incorporating mental and emotional and spiritual health?
Yeah, like the whole thing, like how we feel mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically.
Holistic.
Yeah. It's what I definitely like. You've got freedom and relationships, which are both close to that. But if I don't feel good, everything else goes on the way line. So it's all about prioritizing mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being.
Yeah, is that an energetic thing too? Because when we're healthy, we've got enough energy to actually put into action to all the other things, purpose, relationship, creativity. But while our health is suffering, that's what our energy is focused on. So we've got nothing left to put into anything else. Is that how it works?
Absolutely, yeah. And whatever's not working in your health is showing you the very thing that needs your attention the most right now.
Yes.
So if like your priority is to always be as healthy as you can be, you're not going to do as many behaviors that might contradict.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, like we can show up better in every aspect of our life, the better we feel. Right? So the higher frequency we hold, mental, physical, emotional, and yeah, spiritual, if you're that way inclined, health and well-being comes first in my values. Yeah.
Definitely makes so much sense. So, David, we'll wrap up now. So, any final words to men? And then, if you could let us know where people can find you.
Sure. The biggest thing as a man is to learn to come to know, love, and accept yourself. If you can do that, you'll sort out life. The most important relationship you'll ever have is the relationship with yourself. So the most selfless thing that you can do is be very selfish with how you treat and take care of yourself. Again, life is all about relationships and good communication. So the quality of your relationships directly impacts every area of your life. So it's first that relationship with yourself, and then through communication, it can be a good idea for many people to learn non-violent communication. So you can learn how to communicate your needs with people without causing borderline abuse. Yeah. So yeah, know, love, and accept yourself. Connect with yourself. That's the biggest thing as a man, I feel. Know that everything's created from love, so love can like literally heal, transmute, and sort out everything. And I believe it's that heart, that our journey is to come back to that. Like the heart of the masculine for me is like coming back to that place of love for everything in your life. Yeah, love, appreciation, and yeah, people can find me on my socials. So my website's path2selfmade.com. That's where I run my men's programs. So I've got a 12-week and a 12-month container called Self-Made. It's about learning how to create your own reality. So yeah, sorting out your identity, your belief systems, your subconscious programming, so that you align to the version of yourself that can fulfill what you're here to fulfill. And if anyone wants to connect with me on socials, I am David E Berriman on Facebook, and David_Berriman on Instagram, and David Berriman on LinkedIn.
Great. And we'll put all those links in below. Wow, what a fascinating conversation. You brought you're number 25, Heart Warrior, and we pretty much touched on a whole range of new stuff, even just within this conversation, especially around religion and the demons. And so it's really been fascinating. Thank you so much, David.
Beautiful. Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute privilege to be here. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. So everyone, thanks for watching. If you could please like and subscribe, and please share with any men, especially men who are going through a tough time. And I was thinking today, my sons are 20 and 23. It's such a good resource for the younger men as well, just to have some male mentors that, they can flick through and see what resonates. So we're going to do the whole series. I'm going to do at least interview 100 men. So it's going to build up to be a fascinating platform. So thank you once again, David. And thanks everyone for watching. I'll be back in a couple of days with another episode of Heart Warriors. Bye.
See you later.
Stay on if you want.
Well, good.